Welcome back to the Pastor Study. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. It is Wednesday the 18th, and you may not realize this, but today has been predicted to be one of the days that the world will end. I know. I saw a few articles over the past couple weeks suggesting either today, the 18th, or the 23rd. Actually, yesterday, tax day, probably would have made more sense to me as day for the end of the world, but hey, what do I know? I'm not a numerologist. I don't make predictions about when rogue planets will come streaming into our solar system and collide with the Earth or cause all sorts of gravity problems that will cause all life on Earth to end. Now, if this sounds a little crazy to you, it sounds a little crazy to me. I'll be honest with you. Most recently, a gentleman by the name of Mead, Mr. Mead, has announced that the 23rd is the date of the rapture and the return of the planet Nibiru. Now, he will tell you all sorts of interesting reasons why he thinks this is happening. Stuff going on with stars and constellations, and a little bit of Romans 12, particularly verses 1 and 2. Now, Mr. Mead claims to be a numerologist, and that he has determined that these events will kick off the apocalypse, the rapture, all sorts of wonderful things. Now, what can I tell you? Jesus said that no man knows the date or the hour. No man knows the day or the hour of his return. Jesus said he didn't even know, that only the Father knows. Yet somehow there have been of Jesus' return. Here in the Philadelphia area, there were a group of monks known as the Kelpinites. They lived down along the Wissahickon. They came here because they assumed that Jesus would be returning in the wilderness, and at this time, North America was the wilderness, and so they moved to Philadelphia. Well, actually, they moved to Germantown. No, more properly, they moved to an area along the Wissahickon in what would become Germantown, what would later be part of the city of Philadelphia, but then was wilderness. And there they established a 40-by-foot tabernacle, and they studied the stars, and they did all sorts of interesting things, because they were convinced that Jesus' return was imminent, and he would be coming here first. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Guess what? They were wrong. More recently, Howard Camping did the same thing. He predicted that there would be a certain date in which Jesus would return and the rapture would happen. People sold their homes, quit their jobs, and waited for Jesus to come. Guess what? Harold Camping was wrong. Now, Mr. Mead, who claims to be a biblical numerologist, whatever that means, claims that the 23rd is the date, the beginning of the end, and the rapture. I can tell you right now, I don't think Mr. Mead is credible. It's strange how Christians do this. We do it all the time. Not just Mr. Camping and Mr. Mead. We do this. We get focused on one particular issue in Scripture. And then we exclude everything else. Only to miss the bigger picture. Jesus very clearly said, "No man knows the day or the hour." Yet, Mr. Meade, who claims to take the Bible seriously, has predicted a day. So either he doesn't believe that Jesus said, "No man knows the day or the hour," or he feels that he knows better. Now, before we pick on Mr. Meade too much, Jesus also said, "Love your enemies." He didn't say prepare to kill them with guns. He didn't say hate them. He didn't say ignore them. He said love them. Yet we ignore that. Jesus also said that we are to love one another. But what we will do is say we're to love one another as long as we have the same theological understandings. So if you disagree with me theologically, then I don't have to love you. Well, wouldn't that make me an enemy then? And if I'm your enemy, what did Jesus say you're supposed to do? Yeah, that's right, love me. But we don't take that seriously either. And here's the problem. We lose focus and settle into our pet concerns, our interests, and we lose sight of the bigger picture. Jesus didn't say that they would know we are his disciples because we're young earth creationists, or we believe in a particular theory of atonement, or because we have the right carpet in our sanctuary, or because we sing the right songs. For some that means hymnals, for some that means praise hymns, for some that means if there's no band, there's no way I can worship there, so they must not be Christians. You see the problem here? In all of this, we choose the things we want and forget what Jesus said. In this, we're just like Mr. Meade or Mr. Camping or the Kelpenites or any one of the countless people who have predicted the date of Jesus' return only to get it wrong. So brothers and sisters, go do something incredible. Love your neighbors, love your enemies, and let people know that we belong to Jesus. I'll see you soon.